All right, here's another session with Math with Mr. Luna. Still looking at solving equations, but now we're going to be looking at using the distributive property. Distributive property is something that we should have been exposed to in the 6th grade, but if you don't remember, this is a good lesson, an opportunity to refresh our memory on that. So here's my equation. I have 32 multiplied by x plus 2.32 equals 114.24. Now, each of these pieces of information comes from a word problem that we're going to be looking at, and I'll be labeling those as we go through this question. But here's the problem itself. It says a collector has a box of 32 figurines. The value of each figurine increased by $2.32 over the past year. The box of figurines is now worth $114.24. What was the original cost of each figurine using the variable x? So there's a couple pieces of information that we know. We know that there were 32 figurines. So the 32 represents the figurines. All right. The $2.32 was how much it increased by. The price increase, the $114.24, represents the total worth with the increase. Now the x, that's what we're going to be solving for. Our x represents the original cost, the OG amount. All right, so we have 32 figurines. The price increased by $2.32 with a new total of $114.24, and we're using x to represent the original amount, the original price of each figurine. So now we're going to be using the distributive property to demonstrate how we can find the unknown amount. So the distributive property is this right here is known as a coefficient, and all we are doing with that coefficient is we are multiplying it by each number inside of parentheses. So we're going to do 32 multiplied by x. 32 multiplied by $2.32. So let's rewrite that now. So I'm going to have 32 multiplied by x. When you're multiplying an integer by a variable, you can just combine them. So I get 32x. Now I have 32 multiplied by $2.32. So 32 multiplied by $2.32 is $74.24. And that's still going to equal $114.24. Now this looks familiar to our previous lesson of solving two-step equations. I have my variable term, my constant term, and my total amount. Now I'm just going to be using my inverse operations to find the original amount. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract $74.24 from each side. A positive $74.24, subtract $74.24, that just equals 0. $114.24, subtract $74.24, that's going to give me a total of $40. So now I have 32x equals 40. I did my first step of subtraction. Now I need to use my inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide by 32 on both sides. 32 divided by 32 is 1. Those just cancel each other out. So all I have left now is x equals 40 over 32. But that's an improper fraction, so I want to make sure I put my improper fraction as a decimal. So I'm just going to do 40 divided by 32 because a fraction is division. So 40 divided by 32 equals 1.25. And that is x. We just solved for our original amount. So the original amount of each figurine was $1.25. So again, the distributive property, you are taking our coefficient, that's not what I wanted to do, take our coefficient of 32, multiply it by each term inside of parentheses, and then we'll get to a point where we're just solving a two-step equation. Let's move on to the next problem. All right, so now we have -5 multiplied by s plus 30 equals -17. Now we have negatives. We need to go back and remember our negative rules. So again, distributive property. We're multiplying the coefficient to each term inside my parentheses. So -5 multiplied by s is just -5s. So I have a -5 multiplied by +30. When you're multiplying a positive and a negative, you're always going to get a negative integer. So this is going to change to subtraction because it's negative. So -5 multiplied by 30 is -150 equals -17. Here's my two-step equation now. Now I'm just going to use my inverse operations. So I have -150, so I need to add 150 to both sides. That cancels each other out. So -17 plus 150 is going to give me positive 133. It's positive because my positive number has a larger magnitude. It's farther from 0, so it's going to be positive. So since that's equals 0, I'm just going to rewrite my equation again to -5s equals my 133. Now I'm just going to use my inverse operations. I have -5 multiplied by s. I'm going to divide by -5 on both sides. Divide by -5 on both sides. -5 divided by -5 just gives me 1, so all I have left is the s. 133 divided by -5. Now, our division rules with negatives are the same as our multiplication rules. So a positive divided by negative is going to give me a negative amount. So -133 divided by -5 is going to give me -26.6. So S equals -26.6. Nothing has changed except for the fact that our answer was negative because our coefficient had a negative on the outside. So we need to make sure that we're keeping track of our negative signs. Okay, I got 2 more. Let's move to the next ones. But now we're going to have fractions and decimals. And it's just the same process. We're using the distributive property by multiplying our coefficient on the outside to each term on the inside. So let's start with the first one. I have negative 1/2 multiplied by b subtract 6 equals 5. Multiplying the negative 1/2 to both terms. So negative 1/2 multiplied by b is negative 1/2 b. Okay, so now I have a negative multiplied by a negative. So negative 1/2 multiplied by negative 6, that's going to give me a positive 3. Because multiplication is in these things, I have 1/2 of 6. Negative 1/2 of negative 6 is positive 3. Now that equals 5. Now I'm just going to use my inverse operations for two-step equations. Subtract 3 on both sides, subtract 3 on both sides. 3 subtract 3 is 0, so that cancels out. Now what I'm left with is negative 1/2 b. 5 subtract 3, that equals 2. Now inverse operations again, I'm going to divide by negative 1/2 on both sides. Divide by negative 1/2. But dividing by 2 divided by a fraction of negative 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So I'm changing my dividing by a fraction to actually multiplying by its reciprocal. So 2 multiplied by negative 2 equals negative 4. So b equals negative 4 for the first one. Let's look at another one. Now we have decimals. So we have 4/10 multiplied by x subtract 45/100 equals 9 2/10. So again, I need to distribute my coefficient into each term. It's multiplication. So 4/10 multiplied by x is 4/10 x. So 0.4x. I have a positive multiplied by a negative, so it's going to be negative. 4/10 multiplied by 45/100 is going to be negative 18/100 equals 9.2. You can use a calculator for these because I know some of the calculations for decimals and fractions can be a little tedious if you're doing it on paper. Now here's my two-step equation part. And use my inverse operation. So I'm going to add 18/100 to this side. That's going to cancel out, make 0. Then I'm going to add 18/100 as well. But make sure you line up your place values with decimals. This is 0.18. So I need to make sure I complete my place value. I'm just going to add a 0 here so I know what I'm adding. Okay, now I'm just going to rewrite it. I have 4/10 x equals, now I'm just adding here. They're both positive values, so I don't need to worry about subtracting them to find the difference. So I'll just add them together. So this becomes 9 3/8. Now I'm just using another inverse operation, multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide by 4/10 on each side. That equals 1, so all I have left is x. So this becomes 9 3/8 divided by 4/10, and that's going to give me 23 45/100. Be careful when you're typing this into the calculator. You do 9.38 first, divided by 0.4. And that would give you 23 and 45 hundredths. So this is solving equations with distributive property. The only thing different is this section right here. When we are distributing our coefficient into the terms. After that, it should be pretty familiar because now you're just solving your two-step equation.